From Princess Rhaenyra's mother dying heartbreakingly during childbirth, to the nasty scheming of the king's most trusted companions, House of the Dragon has been a ride, but there are a few things they should have never done in the first place, like Alicent's wrong interpretation of Viserys' dying wish. I mean, wasn't it just disturbing to see that? The woman had repeatedly expressed to everybody just how much she loved the king, only for her to go on and misguide people about what he said to her on his deathbed. All lies. I don't believe for a second that she didn't get it. If you guys noticed, Viserys had quite a fascination with Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy, but it was nothing more than that. Come on, he even showed the engraved words on his dagger to Rhaenyra, whom he had chosen to be the heir to his throne. And even though his resolve did waver quite a few times, she was still undoubtedly going to succeed him. Now, nobody thought that was going to be easy, because it was Alicent she was up against. Underneath that innocent, loving face of hers lay a fierce and cunning woman, one who would do absolutely anything to protect her own. And the rest, you already know. She practically stole the throne from the rightful heir, but the show went into such a predictable place. It just didn't sit well with the audience. I mean, you're telling me that after all of that buildup, it only took a hearing problem to send the Empire into war? That's pretty crazy if you ask me. And the showrunners could have thought of something more convincing than that. But this isn't the only way Rhaenyra was wronged by the showrunners. They didn't even show her romance with Harwin. And not only was this tragic for the audience waiting for some spicy content, it left a gaping hole in the princess's character development. This wouldn't have been a big issue if the dude was simply one of her irrelevant flings. But her relationship with him was implied to be very strong throughout. There were consistent talks of how much she loved him. Not to mention, she had 3 whole kids with him. But as you can probably tell, the showrunners love to keep us hanging, because they fast-forwarded through the entire bit where both of them fall for each other. And sadly, the only way their romance is confirmed is through the suspicions of others. I mean, this choice made no sense to me. They never hesitated to show her romance with Criston. And though showing that was very important for the story to progress, we needed to see Harwin and Rhaenyra together to feel for them. You get it, don't you? Just hinting at the fact that they love one another, and shortly after killing him off, it was simply not enough for us to empathize with the situation. So in the end, it just seemed like lousy decision-making. And it seemed like the only reason they ever introduced Strong's character was to introduce Rhaenyra's illegitimate kids, whose birth went on to become one of the greatest points of contention in the court. Speaking of lousy though, how did Otto manage to get away with everything? This left me baffled for days because the events made no sense. After Otto tried to cause a major rift between the king and his daughter, Viserys got rid of him almost instantly. He realized that his hand was, in fact, only trying to further his interests. And one would think that that kind of offense could never be forgiven, but that wasn't the case at all. In fact, after Lionel Strong passed away, the ex-hand of the king simply resumed his position. Everybody assumed that Alicent somehow convinced the king to let her father come back, but they never even showed how he earned his place back. I mean, he must have had to at least apologize for what he did, or at least done something to earn the king's trust back, but there was none of that. It was almost like the king had forgotten how treacherous the man had been, and that just feels like the showrunners failed to tie up the loose ends. Looking at Otto's presence leads to the eventual decline of the king's relations with his daughter. His comeback was super important, and at the very least, it deserved a proper explanation. But there are quite a few other things that left the audience clueless. Like Daemon's random outburst at his wife. I mean, you all probably knew just how vicious his character was since the very start. I'm talking cold and simply relentless. But that bit changed overnight as soon as he married Rhaenyra. He had a love for his niece that was unparalleled. This may be a bit weird to hear, but he was always affectionate towards her. Heck, he even does the fatherly role so well, it was just impossible to imagine him tolerating any harm to his family. And that is precisely why it made no sense when he harmed his wife in a fit of anger. It must have come as an absolute shocker when you saw him grab her by the neck just to prove his point. And in an instant, his entire character development went right into the trash can. If you had come to believe that he had changed for good, the showrunners probably wanted to burst your bubble and let you know that Daemon will always be Daemon. Still, I hated this wake-up call. You were probably all enjoying the fact that the certified bad boy had now become a good boy, but this single decision in the finale wasted all that progress. What a bummer. Still, it's not as bad as villains not doing their job properly. I mean, why exactly did Rhaenys spare her enemies? You all probably warmed up to her character at some point during the season. It wasn't that bad, but her decision in the finale made absolutely no sense. She managed to escape the dragon pit with her vicious-looking beast, and in the process, she ended up killing thousands of innocent people because they had been standing right over it. As she emerged from beneath the ground, you could see that she didn't give a damn about the massacre she had caused. But then, why didn't she just kill the Hightowers? They were standing right in front of her, utterly defenseless to the dragon she was aboard. It wouldn't have taken more than a minute for all of them to be burned to ash. Instead, Rhaenys chose to fly away and warn the princess of what had happened, which was stupid to say the least. Maybe she just didn't want to be involved in the shady business of the Targaryens. Or maybe she wanted Rhaenyra to have the honor of killing the traitors with her own hands. But for now, this decision remains pretty much unexplained. Exactly like Aemon's character arc. This is where the book fans have tons of questions, because this is not how they remember him. In the books, he is described as a villain without any remorse. But when he goes after Lucerys, he murders him on purpose. Not just that, but he plucks his eyes out as well. Yikes. Do you feel the shivers? Unfortunately, the show deviated from this, because as you see Aemon chase, eventually, he loses control of Vhagar, and he does end up killing Lucerys. But his expressions made it clear that it had never been his intention to begin with. Was there a reason behind this deviation? Who knows? But that's all we've got on the worst House of the Dragon decisions. See you in the next video.